2020 Finance Bill approved by the Federal Executive Council.
COVID-19 response. Federal government disburses 66.5 billion naira to 35 eligible states.
Minister of Information to brief the media on NSAS aftermath today.
And on Good Morning Nigeria, we shall discuss youth involvement in agriculture.
The Nigerian youth make up 60% of Nigeria's population, and this implies that their involvement is vital to national development.
And over time, various administrations have made attempts to stimulate the interest of the youth in agriculture with programs such as the Back to Land scheme for youths and school leavers, as well as the Fadaba program that was introduced in 1992.
And these efforts, including others such as the Anchor Borrower Scheme and Survival Fund, have in some way targeted the youth, but many factors have contributed directly or indirectly to low participation of youth in agriculture. Agencies including the International Fund for Agricultural Development Fund, IFA that is, have enumerated several factors responsible for this.
That's right, Nadabu. Now, they mentioned insufficient access to knowledge, information, and education. Now, limited access as well to land, particularly with regard to rural women. And there are also financial challenges as well as, of course, the markets that ordinarily would offtake the produce from the farms. Plus, they say limited involvement in policy dialogue.
And agricultural experts also believe factors such as parental consent, poor societal perception of farming and agriculture as a profession, that is, poor access to storage facilities, low esteem of most Nigerian farmers, and poor returns on investment all contribute to poor participation of youth in agriculture in Nigeria.
Well, last week, President Muhammadu Buhari flagged up the National Young Farmers Scheme to be managed by the National Agricultural Land Development Authority. And the purpose, of course, to enhance youth interest in farming. 1,000 youths in 774 local government areas in the country are being targeted in the scheme, with 100 in each local government area to be involved at the pilot phase.
And Kingsley, agencies in agriculture have been urged to further streamline priorities to aid this process, with government promising an enabling environment to ensure better youth participation in agriculture.
But what more can be done to spur youth involvement in agriculture in Nigeria? Now, could it also be of any help if agricultural science were to be reintroduced into the curriculum, this time as a compulsory subject at the secondary school level, has been suggested by some experts. And then how crucial are financial institutions in energizing the interests of the youth in agriculture? And should the youth also be viewed as partners in development rather than being persons at the receiving end? We have guests on the program later on in our conversation segment to tackle those issues. I'm Kingsley Osadola, and I welcome you to today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. As always, we are live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, and we're broadcasting from our Abuja headquarters studios.
And I am Yusuf Nadabu Usman. The morning news will reach you in a moment, as well as other complementary segments later. Musbao Wahab is here for the morning news. Good morning, Musbao.
Good morning, Yusuf. Good to be part of this. Now, the news, the 2020 Finance Bill, critical to the implementation of the 2021 budget, has been approved by the Federal Executive Council. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, announced this while briefing newsmen after the meeting of a council presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari. Contrary to insinuations in some quarters, the minister was emphatic that neither taxes nor levies will be increased.
Principle is to consider how we will have adequate macroeconomic strategies to attract investment, to be able to grow the economy on a sustainable basis, but also to create jobs as the immediate fiscal strategies that we need to put in place to accelerate domestic revenue mobilization in response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
And the federal government has disbursed 66.5 billion naira equivalent to $175 million to 35 eligible states on the basis of the amended COVID-19 responsive 2020 budget results achievements. The multi-dimensional security challenges being expressed require a robust synergy of all key agencies. The House Committee on National Security and Intelligence says this is at the heart of the security reform policy of this administration in fulfilling its constitutional responsibility of ensuring security and welfare of citizens.
Security organization under the jurisdictions of this committee reveal assuring outcomes characterized by diligence and effective National Assembly in the performance of the agencies.
In the last 1 month, the various National Assembly standing committees have been hands-on with the scrutiny of the 2021 budgets of ministries, departments and agencies of government. This process is now in its last lap. The newly inaugurated management of the National Population Commission appeared before the National Assembly Committee on National Identity and National Population to defend its 2021 budgets. The Commission's management said enumeration area demarcation will be paramount in 2021.
379,381 naira. This includes a provision for 4.5 billion for the completion of the EAD.
So, and there must be timelines to deliverables on what you intend to do.
In politics, President Muhammadu Buhari has formally reacted to the defection of Ebonyi State Governor David Umahi to the All Progressives Congress (APC), describing it as a bold move driven purely by principle rather than opportunistic motives. In a statement signed by the Senior Special Assistant on Media and Publicity to the President, Garba Shehu, the President commended the Governor for taking this bold decision in accordance with his conscience and principles rather than any external influence or compulsion. It described as gladdening that Governor Umahi cited good governance as a major factor in his decision to join the APC, urging Nigerians to pay less emphasis on identity politics for democracy to make the desired impact on the country. President Buhari says the governor might be called names for his courageous decision, but urged him to take solace in the fact that he is paying the price men of principles have to pay for acting in accordance to their conscience. Like an adage that says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. This scenario played out as the All Progressives Congress, APC, is already putting machinery in motion to achieve success ahead of the legislative by-elections rescheduled to hold on the 5th of December 2020. A 7-member campaign council for Cross River North Senatorial District, led by the former Borno State Governor, Senator Kashim Shettima, has been inaugurated.
We are all tasted hands in this business, so I will not tell you how to do it. All we need is victory.
Politics is a game of numbers, your ability to mobilize support. Our candidate is well accepted by his people and will work to ensure that we crown his efforts with success.
Just so you know, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, is expected to hold a press conference in Abuja today, Thursday, 19th of November 2020, on the NSAS protests and its aftermath. The conference is expected to hold at the Nigerian Army Resource Center, Mambila Barracks Junction off Maitama Avenue, Asokoro, Abuja by 11 o'clock this morning. That's a bit of the news on Good Morning Nigeria. The program will continue in just a moment with Kingsley and Yusuf Nadabo after this break.
Power, N-Tech, and N-Agro. These and more in spite of a recession and a global pandemic.
Do you know that social media is not good or bad, and that it is you who is using it that is either good or bad? Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, verify the information, and reflect before sharing it. Now, are you a good social media user? Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source for a better Nigeria.
This message is from the National Orientation Agency.
Hi. I'm done. Really? Yes.
There's an easier way to get more data. Get more out of life with the new Airtel data plans. Dial *141# now. Data is life.
Airtel, the smartphone network. The Council of Our Fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Community Live is brought to you by Axis Bank and Babai Jebu.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. It's time for business news, and there are reports on what statisticians are saying with regard to the importance of data to development. Let's listen in to our correspondent, Kunle Adeyeye.
Statisticians have emphasized that the economic and social survival of the society is hinged on its statistics. They insist transparency in governance can be further enhanced by vital statistics for more effective implementation of government programs.
When used as early warning system, the data can help to foster peace by regularly providing information on the status of state-society relations, which lie at the center of
sustainable peace.
In another development, an entrepreneur, Chukwuma Okewan, says entrepreneurship-based learning should be inculcated into the school curricula to change the orientation of young people on how to be gainfully engaged.
We need to tilt our education towards entrepreneurship empowerment, a situation where someone graduates as an engineer and stay fall back to the street to look for a job is a disservice to the system. Education ought to be feeding the industry and not the other way around. Maybe a situation where someone is done with school, he has the certificate, but he doesn't have the technicalities, he doesn't have the soft skills to be useful in the workplace. Those ones we can still catch them young.
He said programs of this nature should also be tailored and extended to capture Nigerians on the streets. And now to the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange to see how tradings went on Wednesday, November 18, 2020. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Many thanks, dear Kunle. Well, thank you so much for that business package. Next on the program is the newspaper review.
Newspaper reviewer Bayo Tebe is here with us in the studios. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kingsley. Good morning. Good morning, Yusuf. Good morning, Nigeria.
Bayo.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bayo, congratulations.
Thank you. What about?
Super Eagles, they are still on top of their group.
Yes.
Despite
fumbling and wobbling. Well, all things being equal, we still have some qualifying matches, about 2 of them to play in between now and the match. Hopefully, we will qualify to be in Cameroon. But that will also give time for our team to improve. But most importantly, I think our charity should begin at home. There must be an infusion of our local players in the team. I was embarrassed when our coach said that the weather was too hot for our players. How can players come home and say home is too hot for them?
Yeah. And so saying that the pitch too was not of standard.
In Siaka Stadium?
Mm-hmm. And when you had a standard pitch at Obwe Stadium in Benin, what happened?
That's it.
Yeah, that's right.
4 up and then 4 down in just less than...
Excuses.
Yeah, that's right. The sports minister has already expressed his displeasure with the quality of the coaching and the coach. And I think that the time has come to take a drastic decision. You can be certain that if he were an indigenous coach, as happened to Stephen Keshi or Samson Siasia, they would have long since been fired. There are no sentiments about this.
Uproar, like you say, uproar. People,
Big
Nigerians.
Big time.
Start talking, he should be sacked, he should be doing
right. So let's take a look at the front pages of the papers this morning.
All right. Let's start with the Nation newspaper. Just above the mast today, let's get going from there. AMCON on page 2, that is AMCON, Jimo Bremo, Tango, over 70 billion debts. And then we have court orders, arrest of minor, bail revoked. That's the little rider there, and this story is going to be gotten on page 3. We didn't claim exclusive right to gold, says Zamfara. Get that story on page 8 of the Nation. And then on page 6, Masari to spend 282 billion naira. For what? I don't know. Just check it out. Get the details in page 6. And Federal Executive Council OK's finance bill on page 5. When you come down a little bit, you find the Stock Exchange Gates note to list shares on page 27, that is. And Plateau deserves special grant. That's talking about insights, I think. That's going to be on page 6. Bob Percy urges federal government to release #NSAS protesters and unfreeze the accounts. You get that detail on page 8. The big story here on the Nation newspaper is about 2023. And it says Umahi's defection raises presidential zone in stake. And the writers are, Governor urges APC, PDP to zone ticket to Southeast. That's presidential ticket, I believe. And then Wike knocks colleague as Buhari applauds the action. And that's the details of this are going to be found on the Nation newspaper. Kingsley?
All right. Let's also take a look at the Daily Trust newspaper. Below the nameplate says 2023 presidency, zoning deepens cracks in APC and PDP. That's on page 40. Cotton production surpasses domestic demand, page 30, and stocks buying resurfaces as investors gain 300 billion naira. Lead story, it's on the Finance Bill 2020, and it says tax relief for small businesses as federal government okays Finance Bill 2020 and rules out tax increase and reduces taxes on mass transit vehicles. That's, you have details of that on page 20. Now, also on the front page there, with a kicker, killings and abductions. Passengers desert Abuja Kaduna Road. Again, we're back to the old story. And 4 riders, passengers throng train stations. Transporters threaten strike over highway insecurity. Sack service chiefs now, and that's attributed to Northern Elders. And troops launch manhunt for bandits. And you can see the 2 photographs there, one of them inset, showing passengers scrambling to purchase tickets for the 6 p.m. train at Rigasa train station in Kaduna yesterday due to last Sunday's attack by bandits along the Kaduna-Abuja highway. And right at the foot of the front page of the Daily Trust, Kano kidnapper nabbed after killing victim. And states get 66 billion naira in new COVID-19 budget. Harsh and SARS, PAMDEF kicks as presidency clarifies absence at South-South meeting. Details, page 37. Bayo.
Thank you. Let's start with the story on banditry and particularly the abandoning of the Kaduna-Abuja highway. Travelers are very wary to use that highway now, and consequently there's been tremendous pressure on the Kaduna-Abuja train services since, for instance, last Sunday, on 4 different locations, bandits had mounted roadblocks and were operating there. It took the intervention of an army convoy to go through before they were able to open that road. And consequently, there's also another development about bandits. 6 assistant superintendents of police who had been posted from Maiduguri and were traveling to go and resume in Zamfara ended up being abducted between Dogundaji and Kankara in Katsina State. There were 8 of them. In fact, 9 of them had been promoted. 1 opted not to travel with the others. The others hired a bus to take them. And when the bus got to Kano, it broke down. So they had to get another bus. So 8 of them were heading towards Zamfara when they ran into these bandits. 2 of them managed to escape. 1 was shot in the leg. In fact, it was villagers who rescued him, took him to a police station before he was helped to the hospital where he is now undergoing treatment. The 6 now are in the hands of the bandits, and the bandits, out of audacity, are demanding that they should be paid 100 million before they will release police. Criminals demanding money to release law enforcement agents that they have abducted.
Yeah.
I think...
Well, you know, Bayo, the Abuja-Kaduna highway has been in the news in terms of insecurity for a while now. And from time to time, we've had swift responses from the law enforcement agents. The police in particular, if you recall, it was sometime last year, well before the COVID-19 lockdown. They went on that particular route, cleared out a number of the operational basis of the kidnappers and bandits, and made a number of arrests. You saw the photographs. You also saw the video clips of those bandits, along, of course, with their armory. But after a while, we were told that some of them who managed to escape that flush out dispersed to other locations. And there seemed to have been some sanity. But in recent weeks, particularly now on the heels of the NSAS protests and the police then disappearing from their regular duties on account of what also happened to them, there's been a resurgence. Well, how can we continue to have this? Abuja-Kaduna highway is an arterial road in this country. So if it is not safe to be on that road, as indeed in some other parts of the country, then it's a wake-up call for the security agencies. Yes, the Air Force has its reports from time to time as to how it is strafing the camps of these persons, but the Air Force doesn't have boots on the ground.
You see, you know what, Kingsley, what bothers me and worries me so much is the resurgence. If we can nip it in the bud for a while and sanity is achieved for a while, I think we can maintain the sanity, because that tactics that was used in trying to clear the bandits and get the place safe for people to use over time can be maintained so that they get gone and gone forever. That's what I think that what should be done, instead of having to come back again.
That's right.
And keep coming back.
But isn't it curious?
Yes.
And I think that that's part of what needs to be addressed. Where are these bandits or hoodlums or kidnappers coming from? What is generating them? It looks like there's just an assembly plant or a conveyor belt that once you flush out a set, take them into custody or otherwise, then you have a new wave of kidnappers and bandits who also come. I mean, you hear reports about the Air Force or the military or even the police taking out a number of these bandits or neutralizing them. And yet, you continue to have this surge in numbers. Where are they coming from? Are they internal, or are we having infiltration?
I think they are well coordinated. If you notice, when there was pressure on the Kaduna-Abuja expressway, the rate of banditry reduced on that axis. Mm-hmm. Then it went along Lokoja-Abuja highway. Then when they tackled that, you now have it now resurfacing around the Zamfara area. So they are mobile, and unless they are dealt with seriously, it will continue. The last initiative by the Nigerian Air Force helped considerably. They were tackling the bandits in the forest of Kaduna. I've forgotten the name of the forest now, the forest that linked between Kaduna and Zamfara. That is where many of them were hiding. And when they went there and dispersed them, we saw that there was a drop, particularly in Biringwandi axis area. But now, they've apparently migrated towards Zamfara area now, where they are now holding everybody to ransom. And I think one other danger is that rather than patently condemn banditry, the initiative to negotiate with them is rather emboldening them. You don't negotiate with criminals. If you do that, you are apparently recognizing their criminality, and they will now begin to give you terms and begin to detect. You can imagine the audacity of criminals abducting law enforcement agents and demanding ransom. It's unheard of.
I don't really want to take the words of the IGP in this regard for granted, because I know he means business. When the flush took place the other time before the sanity came, before this recent unpleasant happenings, he said the Nigerian police have the capacity, to do what it takes in order to get Nigeria safe, and especially that was safe, and it was done. And I think Frank Mba was on the media yesterday reiterating that very fact. And I think we should take them seriously and then plead with them to ensure that once they are being flushed, they are flushed forever from that zone, and we get going. Any other stories, by the way?
Yeah,
the other stories are political stories.
There was a time Federal Road Safety Corps officials were going for a training program, and they were kidnapped somewhere around Nasarawa. Yes. And a few of them were also shot in that particular incident. Again, of course, those are law enforcement officers, because they are traffic enforcement officers. But to say that you have kidnapped police men and you are demanding for a ransom is audacious.
Yes. Well, the political stories are two. The Supreme Court has upheld the election of Governor Doyediri, and the governor has also appealed to all that, well, we are all brothers and we are one, and under one brotherhood, we should join our hands together to lift Bayelsa State to the glory that it is desired. The other concern is the latest about the defection of Governor Dave Umahi to the APC. It is also occasioned a lot of remarks. Among those who have commented is President Muhammadu Buhari, who has commended the initiative of Governor Doyediri. The president says that he urged all to emphasize, not to emphasize, identity policies, and if we want our democracy to make impact in the country. Meanwhile, the National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party says the party cannot be stampeded into taking decisions on zoning on 2023. It's adding that Governor Umahi left for personal reasons. Governor Nyesom Wike, however, says that his friend left the party because he has presidential ambition. And there have been reactions across Ebonyi State. 8 members of the Ebonyi State House of Assembly and 2 commissioners have declined to follow the flow with the governor Others say that his coming to the APC is an added advantage, and towards 2023, APC is hoping to take over Ebonyi State. Governor Dave Umahi himself said that, well, as far as he is concerned, I am not vying for any position in APC. Rather, I will play a guiding role for anyone who wants to vie. At the end, if APC fails to zone the presidency to South East, I will have had no regrets, because my defection has created a political gathering and mass movement for which a governor has sacrificed for the right of his people.
Well, as the saying goes, time will tell.
Yes.
Yes. But the story on the Supreme Court decision on the Bayelsa governorship election, which apparently probably is one of the last in the series of litigation on that election, it's interesting. The Supreme Court dismissed the appeals because they were lacking in merit. And if you recall, I had mentioned once on the program that it is not to deny access to justice for potential litigants in election matters, but sometimes you just find that some of the petitions are actually vexatious, even for parties that are on the face of it outsiders in a race, as we found in the case of Bayelsa. It may be useful, therefore, as part of the electoral reform, that you can consider whatever conditions or criteria will be laid down, that there ought to be a deposit paid into court for a petitioner to proceed with an election petition. Because in this case, if you have a petition against you, you are obliged to defend it.
Yes.
And the defendants will include both, of course, either the winner or the contestant in the election, or INEC itself, usually including INEC itself, because there was a claim of exclusion. One of the candidates who petitioned was 34 years old. He wasn't 35. On what ground then were you petitioning that you were excluded from the election, when clearly on the face of it you didn't meet the age requirement? So if you have that criterion of saying pay a deposit into court, if you win, the deposit is refunded to you. If you lose on the ground that your petition was frivolous, you forfeit the deposit, and it could actually be used as cost, to settle the respondents the respondents to your petition. Otherwise, we'll keep on going like this. How many cases has Bayelsa had to respond to? The same way you fight with other state governors.
Yes.
Sometimes when they get elected, and then they are sitting at the edge of their seat, not certain whether or not they will be in office or otherwise.
I think that should be included in the Electoral Act. Frivolous cases, especially frivolous petitions, should be not allowed to go away without cost. When they are cost, then people will think twice before filing some of these frivolous cases. At the end of the day, these last 6 cases at the Supreme Court were all withdrawn.
That's going to be a very good addition, if possible, if they can work on the Electoral Act and have that one,
Yeah, that will be next year.
Next year,
This year is gone.
No, this year is
they are
gone,
more concerned about the budget now, which is interesting.
Concern now is about COVID-19. All over the world, France, Israel, Holland, Spain, Germany, Italy, they are all due for second lockdown. But however, the DG for the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, Chike Ihekwazu, says that there's no cause for alarm as far as Nigeria is concerned. Why? Because right from the time we started, when we had 15 molecular laboratories, today we have about 80 public health institutions where tests can be carried out. However, we need to come forward to make sure we take advantage of the test. And it is by complying with those protocols that we'll be able to keep the COVID-19 at bay.
All right, Bayo, just before we let you go, there's something that we need clarification. I'm not quite sure. I've tried sometimes to focus on it, but because I haven't seen the draft bill. I'm talking about the Finance Bill 2020. We had the same issues when they were working on the Finance Bill 2019. Why is the bill labeled Finance Bill 2020 when it is supposed to govern the Appropriation Act of 2021? So, are you with me? The effectiveness of the bill is for next financial year, which is year 2021. So, why is it being labeled Finance Bill 2020?
Well, I think
because it's a companion of the appropriation bill,
yes.
That this will guide the National Assembly.
I see what you mean. Don't forget that we are just migrating into a January-December budget cycle.
We're not just. We have already accomplished it.
But there is still a fall back on that. And some of these laws, this law particularly, is to take care of some of the tax requirements currently and also into 2021?
No, it cannot be currently. It's a bill. It's a bill now. I don't know. That's why I said that clarification is required. I mean, the Federal Executive Council has approved the draft bill, which will now go to the National Assembly.
Yes.
How many weeks do you have left for the year? And we are back to the January-December cycle. But it's not the matter of splitting hairs. I just want to be certain so that when you are, Finance Bill 2020 Governing Appropriation Act 2021. I don't know. I'm sure there will be some clarification.
At least before December 3 when the...
Yes, we are hoping that the 2021 will get passed.
Yes, and then we'll get that through. Oh, thank you so much, Bayo, for being on this program this morning. And you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We're reaching you from the Nigerian Television Authority. We shall now take a quick break, and then when we come back, conversation continue on our topic for the day.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Hello, madam. Would you like to join us on this mission?
Yes, but how?
Just one question for you. How do you keep your toilet clean?
I use regular detergent and bleach for washing and removing yellow stains. I have been using it for years.
Oh, madam. The regular detergents and bleach are used for washing clothes.
To disinfect your toilet properly, you need Harpic 10X. It is specially made for germs and stains remover. Harpic sticker formula settles on stains and gives 10 times better cleaning compared to regular detergent and bleach.
Wow! Now I'm convinced, Helen Paul.
Really?
Yeah.
Now that she's part of the mission, the next house is yours.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous. Whether you do it for fun or for political gains, real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
On the Premier League Live, showing on the NTA network from 1 p.m. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Axis Bank and Bye Jebu.
All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're enriching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, as a prompt for our conversation this morning, let's listen into this background up, and then we'll get in our guests.
Youth make up about 60% Nigeria's population, and they have over the years made significant contributions to national development. But unfortunately, this group is yet to explore its full potential in the agriculture sector due to some factors. In the past, farming activities were perceived as a job for the low class, illiterate, the elderly, and rural people, and therefore belittling. Making efforts and incentives attached to empowerment programs still makes agriculture less attractive to some youth. Observers believe to attract more youth involvement in agriculture, the issues of youth migration to urban areas in addition to economic constraints must be addressed.
Since we have a few percentage of youths who actually imbibe in that, and then it will be difficult trying to flourish like an average person would do, someone who really have the major backup or someone who is higher in finances and then educational background. So I think the succeeding line is kind of tiny for the youth.
Present administration have helped a lot. There are loans that give to farmers, and I believe if you go to remote villages, you will see young people like us engaging in farming.
This government, since inception, has tried to create the desired awareness and enabling environment through youth-friendly interventions and programs, and as such, the passion and interest is increasing among the youths.
Farming is a very good profession. At least if you can engage yourself in farming, you can be able to feed yourself, feed your family, and even feed your state. and nation as a whole?
I would be so happy to go into agriculture, although I've been commercial farming. I've did substantial agriculture like in a very small scale, particularly area of fish farming.
What more can be done to attract them to the agriculture sector? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be looking at some of the issues shortly.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you so much, Aisha, for that background. This morning we're discussing youth involvement in agriculture, and our guests are already seated in the studio, and then we have one here, and I have one, talking about somebody from Ibadan there. We have in the studio Dr. Emeka Okengu. It's as a development economist, and of course, he is a former World Bank consultant and then a member National Agricultural Transformation Implementation Plan of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. As a member also National Technical Working Group for the 2050?
Nigerian 2050 project.
Yeah, that's great. That's the master plan for that.
Yes.
And of course, undoubtedly also, Dr. Emeka is a farmer. That's the most important.
That's the most critical.
That's
Thank
the most
you very
critical
much.
one,
Thank you
really.
Good morning, Nigerians.
Yeah, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And we also have from Ibadan Network Center a young agricultural entrepreneur, and he is Adewale Kalejaye. Adewale, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you. The topic is youth involvement in agriculture. Kingsley?
That's right, Notable. Thanks a lot. Let's begin with Dr. Emeka Okengu, who is usually a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. Let's just have some conceptual clarification against the background of what we now know what agriculture is supposed to be and what it can achieve. Is there something right or wrong or curious about saying youth involvement in agriculture?
Yes, there is something very curious about using the word youth in agriculture. If you want to give a definition to the word youth, because it's a mindset that creates something for young people, okay, as otherwise talking about adults. Okay, and if you're talking about adults and you're looking at the age gap now, okay, that the United Nations and of course we have adopted as a country of who is youth, it's between the ages of 18 to 35. Some people want to move it up to 40. Okay, and then if you now juxtapose this against this very popular mantra that life begins at 40 and you're fully matured, okay, at 18, now you begin to now play around with the word youth. Okay? Because in this gap, you either look at the youth, the mindset we have in Nigeria is that you're looking at people from the pro-poor perspective. You know, people you need to help to be able to get on with life. But you're also forgetting that there are people who are within that age bracket that have PhDs, okay, that got married. Like in my own case, I got married at 27. Okay, I'd finished my master's at 26. So by 27, I wasn't a youth in that context. Okay, I was a father, I was a husband, I was an adult.
And now a great-grandfather.
Okay, and now a grandfather.
Oh,
okay, so you see, the import of what it is I want to place here is that it's important that when we're defining youth, because that's what's most critical in trying to discuss youth in agriculture, and then probably discussing the programs and projects that government has put in place, and why you keep needing to want to encourage people to enter into a sector that is all that can be. Okay, because agriculture is all, and I'm talking about all. There is no part of, you know, a habitation, existence, or that agriculture does not play a central, not even a key role. So are you talking about agriculture vis-a-vis farming? Or are you talking about agriculture vis-a-vis food production? Or are you talking about agriculture vis-a-vis technology? Or are you talking about agriculture vis-a-vis logistics? Are you talking about agriculture vis-a-vis entrepreneurship? You understand what I'm saying? So yes. By the time you now begin to look at what it is we're talking about, you will now begin to see some sense in, I think, the latest of the programs our government has launched. And I'm very excited with it. The Presidential Youth Empowerment Scheme. You find out that for once, we are moving away from this traditional agriculture thing to get something that is a little bit more comprehensive that we can actually begin to process. And I hope we'll do that in the course of the conversation.
Before we get down to that, you got married at the age of 27.
Yes.
Already you're a father, then from there.
Yes.
You are a husband, and then already an adult person as such.
Yes.
May I ask you this? At what age did you start farming? Because you are a big-time farmer.
I started farming at the age of, as far as I can remember, first I stayed a lot of my time with my grandfather in Jos. He was a miner. But of course, everybody in Jos in those days, has something to do with one farm or the other. My father was in the university, in the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. He was chief accountant, and we had farms. So right from primary school, and this is what I'm also doing with my own children, I've always been part of farming. However, it's important to note that the farming we did in those days, which we saw as recreational, is actually what we're still doing now, and we are seeing as business. You understand what I'm saying? The same kind of farming your mother and your father did, which we call subsistence, was able to help your father feed you people. There was the Rambu or the Lumbu, where they stocked food, and where you needed to go and take it, they will bring it until the next farming season. It's important that we understand that that kind of farming, which I did as a young child, is the kind of farming we are still promoting, on a commercial basis. And this is why we are not making a lot of progress out of it. So yes, I was a farmer. This was when not only the love for farming, but the discipline for care. Because that's actually what farming, impacts into your head. That you have empathy. You see life growing. You help life to nurture. You get excited when you see your seed, sprouting. Now, that was all part of a mindset of teaching agricultural science. It's not the same thing with farming.
Emeka, thank you very much. Part of what you said earlier is very critical, that namely there is a value chain and the whole conception of agriculture, not just farming now, and the locus of young persons in this value chain. I know you ticked off, is it just farming as farming? Is it food production? Is it logistics? Is it entrepreneurship? All of this is important, but how then do we deal with the lingering mindset that when you say young persons in farming or young persons in agriculture, you're almost dredging up memories of back to land program, this whole idea of farming with machetes and hoes and the drudgery of it all.
This is where, again, sir, we missed it. I mean, each time I come here and you miss the intro farmer, you see me say, no, before I get offset, you must correct it. Yes. Because I want everybody to see me as a farmer. And I go to my farm dressed the way I'm dressed. I go to my farm wearing tuxedos. Because you don't see people in that farm, with cutlasses and machetes, except to be able to clear one or two weeds. What you're seeing is, technologies that we're aggregating. And this is where the major skill set comes in for these young people. Everybody does not have to be on that land. Now, some people will be on the land with their technologies. Some people will be on the land with their accounting skills. Some people will be on the land, with their packaging skills. Some people will be on the land, with their marketing skills. So if you don't aggregate this, and you're just looking at me as that person who is probably tilling the ground and producing the food, then you're missing the whole value process of agriculture. Because you actually have two value points. If you want to understand agriculture well. The first value point is at the point of skills and capacity. The second value point is at the point of volume, packaging and value. This is the point you will now begin to cut out your market share. And I think this is where we are missing all this. And in between this, your first point of skills, is where you have education, and then where you have technology.
All right, now, many thanks, Dr. Emeka. Let's cross over to Ibadan and then hear the views of Adewale Kale Jaide, who is an agricultural entrepreneur. Adewale, you've had, Dr. Emeka here, laying the background and then giving us the better perspective or the real perspective for the involvement of youth in agriculture. And it's not that going back to the land or going back as our fathers did and how old people used to do, rather used to farm, is the issue here. The issue of trying to encompass every other thing in agriculture and then see how the youth get involved in it. As an entrepreneur, how would you react to the fact that people today, or rather youth generally, look at this whole set of farming, when you say going back, or rather they are involved in agriculture, they look at it as if they are going to really be on the farm and then till the day, from morning till evening, be in tatters like their grandfathers and fathers did or are doing. And indeed, not thinking about the fact that, like Emeka said, going to the farm as clean as he is, and then being there to enjoy himself and then come back as a farmer.
Okay, I'll start by saying that, like Doctor said, we should understand that agriculture is no longer an old-fashioned industry. It has gone beyond that phase, and we are going into a more technical and more modernized system of agriculture. And we need to also enlighten the youth across Africa and Nigeria in specific that it's beyond just the farming aspects. I mean, the tilling of the ground, the livestock parts. There are many other facets that one can come into agriculture without having to be on the farm. And just like Doctor said, you'll have to look at the areas of logistics, of processing, the marketing aspect, the education aspect. There are people who can just base their agriculture in the area of education. You can go into extension and educating people on the farm on how to get better results. That way you are in agriculture as well. And also you can look at the technology. There are people that are producing technologies that can help us improve on our productivity on the farm. That way you can also benefit from agriculture. So you don't have to be the one that is tilling the ground. You don't have to be the one that is taking the goods to the market. You don't have to be the one that is probably doing the livestock breeding or whatever. You can come in different form, and all this encompasses agriculture. So we should not narrow agriculture into just the angle of farming on the field alone. We have to broaden our scope and understand that there are different ways we can come into agriculture beyond just tilling the ground.
Okay, I still want to stay with you. As a young person, obviously you also interact with your peers. Do they have this kind of understanding that you have just articulated earlier, also by Dr. Okengu? Do they have the sense that when we're talking about agribusiness, it isn't just going with a hoe to the farm to go and start tilling one or two ridges where you plant and then harvest at the end and put it on your head, or so look for some other vehicle to take it to the marketplace and have some money in your pocket?
I would say that there's still so much gap to fill in the area of people coming to get this awareness of what it is that agriculture really encompasses. But the truth is also that we are growing. In the past 3 years, for example, I was reading online that the technological aspect of agriculture has grown in Africa by 110% in less than 3 years. So people are coming to the realization of the fact that it is beyond tilling the ground. There are companies that are springing up across Africa that are coming in different forms and different ways into agriculture. We have those in technology, those that are building robotics. I think I was studying about a company in South Africa precisely that is bringing in robotics into agriculture. So things like this, when the youth become or begin to see that you can come in different forms, I believe it's going to enlarge our scope and make more people to be involved in agriculture beyond just this aspect of tilling the ground.
Let's look at this now from deep inside, and then maybe see how the youth can appreciate the fact that you don't have to really go to the farm in order to be a farmer, and you don't have to really, till the line before you become an agriculturalist. The days are gone for all this, I believe, and that's what the government is trying to do. Trying to introduce mechanization, trying to bring in technology, trying to diversify the whole agricultural setup and have the value chain so expanded that everybody can be part of it. But the basics is that something has to be produced first before the value chain takes control. Now, that is where the trust of the whole thing is. Do you see youth, embracing this to get the product out first before the value chain takes effect and some other youth joining it?
Very good question. It will not depend on what product. And let us be able to discuss product lines. And you might be amazed.
Yeah.
Today, technically, Yobe states, Borno states are seen as, poor states vis-a-vis income generation. But a lot of people do not know that the biggest cattle market in West Africa is in Yobe State. Yeah. Okay, but it's not a market, it's a route.
It's a what?
It's a route, it's a route.
Okay.
Okay, where it's an aggregation point, where cattle are aggregated and then they move out of, they now start moving to other locations. Now, I want you to just imagine if the government of Yobe State decided to get into forage production and get into cattle fattening. And with the background that cattle, for now, at what you call a first sale value of 100,000, generates 4 billion every day in Nigeria in sales. If we are going to be depending on the statistics that 40,000 cattle is slaughtered in the western or a southern part of Nigeria on a daily basis, it gives you a daily income, I didn't say monthly income, of 4 billion naira.
Daily?
Yes.
Right.
At a first sale value of 100,000 per cattle. You're from the north. You know that you will need to put a gun to the man's head to take his cattle 100,000.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, and imagine if you're selling this cattle on live weight and you were able to fatten that cattle, and it takes 90 days or so to be able to get a cattle from very low, weight to about 500, 600 kg. Right? So that means that cattle now has a value, if you're selling again at 1,000 naira per kg, of about 500,000 naira fattened. Imagine if the government of Yobe State, which is very low on revenue generation, goes only into forage production. And then you were doing this forage production on cadastre basis, where you had young people who were now farming on per hectare, outputs. Do you know what will happen?
What will happen?
What will happen is that you won't have any poor person in Yobe State. Okay? You won't have any driver in Yobe State. You won't get anybody who is your megad in Yobe State, except you're prepared to be paying 100,000 a month. And there will be peace. And then these pathways that you want to create would have been established. Now, imagine, a lot of people, again, do not also know that in building what we call the shelter belts in Nigeria, we used neem to create a lot of these shelter beds. So all over northern Nigeria, you have neem trees growing. Do you know the most potent, ingredient for organic fertilizer? It is neem seed.
Most potent?
Yes. Please Google. It is neem seed. And from that neem seed, you can get neem oil, you can get so much. You can even get pesticides and insecticides from neem. So,
Emeka,
yes.
I know I'm still on this subject matter. As it were, if we don't break out of a certain mode of thinking, we probably will be stuck. Not that, but I'm sure you'll agree. We'll still be stuck on the old ways. Because what you're just describing now, you're just taking one state.
Yes.
And you're taking one critical activity.
Yes.
In livestock production, for
one
instance.
State, one product.
Just one product. Yes. And saying, look, do nothing else except forage production.
Yes.
And you can see even the value chain in that sub-activity of forage production.
Yes.
I know, of course, you've consulted for the World Bank and you also sat on some committees with the Ministry of Agriculture. What is the philosophical orientation? Do we have this kind of understanding that therefore would drive policies, programs, and projects?
I think it's what you call red tapeism, okay, if you may. Because right now, we're trying to chase a project, and I've chased this for over 8 years. It will surprise you. And I've said, if you don't align the technologies you've acquired, because all the agencies critical to developing agriculture is outside the Ministry of Agriculture.
All of them?
Almost. NABDA, which is very central, NABDA is the National Biotechnology Development Agency, is under Ministry of Science and Tech, where you have the only gamma irradiation plant in the whole of West Africa is an agency under Ministry of Science and Tech. A Raw Materials Research and Development Council is an agency under Ministry of Science and Technology. Now, if you go to look at the publications of Raw Materials Research and Development Council, it has more to do with the agro-allied, sectors than anything else. Okay? Then you come to agroforestry. It is under the Ministry of Environment. You come to your dams and water bodies. It's under the Ministry of Water Resources. Then you have the agencies that are in charge of fisheries under the Ministry of Agriculture. Are you beginning to see the disconnect? And if these people are not synergized, so we decided to create this program where everybody could come together by first and foremost going to Ministry of Science and Tech to say, you people are central. FIRO is under Ministry of Science and Technology. These are the people in charge of food technology and packaging. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the mindset is first and foremost, you can only decouple it when you appreciate that agriculture has very little. I mean, in our administrative and governance structures, it's shown. I can give you another example now. Look at NIPRID. I've mentioned NIPRID here in one of my... NIPRID had gone to do a research using 2 plants, scent leaf and bitter leaf. And they have been able to develop a protocol that reverses diabetes. Piloted, gone through all the clinical trials. They have even signed an MOU, okay, with M&B to mass produce. But they can't mass produce. M&B cannot mass produce because there are no people planting scent leaf or bitter leaf on commercial basis. You need to be able to get these things in commercial quantities to be able to now do that phyto extracts. You need to produce your medications. Okay? Now, staying with Yebe. There is a strain of corn that grows better in northern Nigeria, can actually do 3 circles. Is there? Nobody is talking about remembering that corn now is the biggest. You're from the north, I keep saying that. People, you will tell Nigerians that rice is not staple to your people. What is staple to your people is masara, is corn. But do you know the truth? The struggle between man and animal for corn is 90 to 10. Animal taking 90, man 10. Because if you have a poultry farm, trust me, your birds will eat before your children eat. Sure. It's simple. Yeah. Your chicken, and they eat like locusts.
Much more than what your family can.
Okay? More than what your family. And you see, 80% of what you use in making these things are grains. And then you look at a situation where you are traveling from here to Lokoja on a flat land left, right, and center, and all you see are bushes. And we keep talking about desert in a country that should be talking about grain belts. And this is happening because we have not been able to get out of that mindset of saying agriculture, crop production. No. Has little or nothing to do with, it's just a stream of agriculture. And the moment you have that understanding, then, Nalado, again, sorry, gentlemen, you people are broadcasters, respected. You come here to work every morning. But do you know that the laws of Nigeria allows you to enter into farming? So do you know what it means? You can actually become a communicator. You can bring your skills as a broadcaster into aggregating, a farm project. And then you are part of that system by just simply saying, this is how we're going to be marketing. So our forefathers, our constitution, our systems taught it through. I think it is for us to get out of a mindset. I can share some of my experiences, not so nice, where you have agencies,
would allow you to do that much later in the program. Let's get across to Aduole Kalejai in Ibadan. Aduole, you've had, this explanation made by Dr. Emeka here, and they are really very interesting issues he raised. As an entrepreneur, do you see this being played out? What so far have you done in trying to get the issues, or rather the agricultural value chain incorporated into what you do and get some more youth into it? I don't want to find out exactly how far you've gone in trying to get the capacity of other youths into your own system there. But looking at what he said, there is so much to be done in this agriculture entrepreneurship. How has it been with you down there?
All right. Thank you once again. Like Doctor said, we need to understand that there are diverse ways with which we can come into agric. And personally, as a company, we looked into the area of livestock. And our focus is in the area of cows and other ruminants. We want to ensure that we can put our own quota down in Nigeria. The nation. I studied Brazil and I realized that Brazil has over 200 million population just like Nigeria, but they have also over 200 million cows or cattle over there in the nation. They can export to other nations to generate more foreign income. So if we as a country, as companies, as individuals, if we can be able to expand that area alone, just looking at that area, just like Doctor said, looking at the area of just fattening of cows in Yobe State. Every state in Nigeria, I believe, have one produce or one agricultural produce or the other that they can actually use to produce and generate employment opportunities to their youths across the globe, across the states. So we need to understand that when we focus on these very little specific goals, we can be able to achieve. So what we do at Meet Wallace is to look at this area of livestock and be able to educate other people to come into. You don't have to be on the farm, and that's what we're trying to educate people. You don't have to be on the farm to do it. We all understand the expertise. We have those that are in the technology aspect in our company. We have those in marketing. We have, my partner, for example, is purely a tech guy. And he's been able to help me, who is who is on the field. So there are also partners who, they don't come to the farm, but they have cows with us. So they can also call themselves farmers. So we just need to look at ways which we can encourage and help youths to understand that they can come into agriculture in different forms.
Very well, very well. Adewale, I still would like you to drill into this aspect. How then does your system work? Yes, you've talked about how you aggregate your cows or cattle, depending on how many they are. What then happens? Are you into dairy production, or are you into hide production, or are you into meat production? In other words, yes, you have the cows or you have the cattle, then what happens? And who does what?
At the moment, we are focusing more on the meat production aspects, but with the goal of entering into the dairy aspects. And for the meat, what we are doing presently is more of fattening of our cattle, just like what Doctor was explaining about Yobe State. That is what we are doing. We look out for lean cows that we know we can buy at very good rates, and we fatten them to generate better income. A 90-day program, we fatten them and we sell off again and return, we produce the cycle again. But like I said, we have this goal of ensuring that we get into milk production as well. I look at what some companies are doing in, I think, yes, Oyo State, whereby they organize communities into schemes that can produce milk for them. So we're also trying to create a community in Ogun State that can achieve these same tactics of generating income. So we're looking at expanding into the milk production aspect. But at the moment, we are trying to maximize the meat industry. Right now, like Doctor said earlier, that Nigeria consumes more than 40,000 cows every day on a daily basis. So there is so much we can tap into. And the truth about this is that foreigners, people from Mali, Niger, and the likes, are still even producing more and getting more income than us in the nation. They bring in more and just sell to us. I think it was on NTA also that I was watching this interview of some guys in Mali or so who, that is what they do. So if we can look inward, we can also expand this market. We can breed, we can have those that are breeding and supply to those who will fatten, and we can have those who will breed and get into the milk production aspect. So as a company right now, what we are focusing majorly is on the fattening process, but with the backbone or the background of also improving our breed towards the level of milk production.
Many thanks, dear. Many thanks, Adewale. Let me come back to Emeka. Doctor, your revelations were really startling and puzzling. I know you're not saying this for the first time. You've been pursuing it all the while. But the surprising thing to me is how wealthy and how rich we are in this country. There was a time I attended a conference in Germany titled Nigeria, Too Rich for Dignity. Now, with all this and with your efforts and the rest of them, I come from the north, as you said, and we've been doing that. When you look at the value chain and the farm value chain there, rice is more or less like foreign to us as we grew up, because we know corn to be the in thing. We take rice in Christmas, on Christmas days, and on salad days and the rest of them. But here we are today. Maize has been given that back seat, as you said, given to the birds you have and the rest of them. My worry is, how do we, as we are talking about youth now, how do we get the youth to understand what Adewale is saying, that the riches or the richness or the wealth in agriculture is enormous, and enough and more than enough for all people in this country to tap in. How do we get that across?
No, but the reward. Why do people want to work in NTA?
Mm.
Reward. Why do people want to work in banks? Reward. That's it. Okay? The moment you create a reward system that is clear, but that reward system has to be bordered on you creating very clear financing regimes that must have a component of what they call patient capital. This is what we are missing and lacking in Nigeria as a country. Not even the Central Bank of Nigeria is giving patient capital. They don't take any risk, unfortunately. So all the development financing you talk about, what you hear is loan. What you hear is bring a bank to guarantee the loan and they can give it to you. That's not how it's done. My young brother talked about the Netherlands. It's a country I'm very conversant with. I can take an hour, describing what they do in the Netherlands. South Africa has what they call the agricultural and the land bank. What the land bank simply does is to be able to support agriculture, support research, support what we call patient capital or green funds, okay, or equity if you may, before you now start getting to the point of debt. Now, the moment you have this, and you see what you now do is that when you want to go and get an agri loan, go to the Facebook, you see everybody advertising that they can give you a business plan. Cut and paste, cut and join. When you take that to the bank, they are not as interested in that cash flow as they are interested in your collateral. Now, most countries in Africa are no longer doing collateral lending. They are now doing what we call cash-based lending. Now, if you have, and this is where it gets more interesting, my brother, we'll have silos. Let us use the silos as a clear example. That we are now using the silos as a basis of now creating our value systems. Okay? So the first target is make certain that the silos are full of grains. The second target will now be for those who want to do macaroni. Look at all the adverts you see about Indomie and all that. These are young people, sassy, uptown children celebrating Indomie. What are they eating? For crying out aloud, grain that has now been molded into something that has become fashionable. So the major problem is that we have not been able to establish first those financing regimes that can be able to now create what you call clear rewards. Okay, clear interest. Where your son is saying, please, they want you to come and take over from me, NTA. And the man looks at you and says, are you for real, sir? When I can make $1 million or $2 million on a monthly basis just doing the same thing for a company that is producing Indomie. But there has to be that volume. And this is where you now need to create what you call your volume matrix. And what is the volume matrix? You must allocate land. Okay, when the young man was talking about per hectare yields. Now, this is what drives agriculture. The moment you're not able to define first your per hectare yield, second, against your national, requirements, third, against your industrial needs, you're not able to get into the market. Because the market is all about any contract you want to get into now has to be a contract that is based on your capacity and ability to be able to sustain your contract.
Dr. Okengu, when you review what you have said or what you are still articulating, the question is inevitable whether we have a holistic capture of all of these issues. Why am I saying it? You're talking about patient capital, you're talking about targeting consumption, targeting industrial production, and so on and so forth. And here we are. We have heard from time to time, even in past agricultural programs, that, every state has at least one agricultural produce. Or even every local government has one agricultural produce. Bring 100 persons from each of the 774 local governments and then get them going. In terms of pulling people off the streets, those who are looking for jobs, that would be a pro-poor idea, and obviously poverty alleviation program, which is not the essence of agriculture. The essence of agriculture is a business, a rolling concern, a going concern year on year, not that we finish this scheme and then we hop off and they're waiting for the next round to come. What is it that we are missing? Earlier you were talking about the use of extracts bitter leaf and the other components, and then to say, look, let's get persons to cultivate this on a commercial basis so that the off-taker, which is a pharmaceutical company, knows that, look, there is assurance of supply. You talked also about, getting Yobe to produce nothing else but just fodder, for livestock. Even in the latest program, have we factored all of this in, or we're just looking at spread, number, equity of all local governments being taken care of and some 700,000 persons being taken care of? I'm saying this so that at the end of the program, when it is being evaluated, we don't miss our target one more time.
Sorry, well, like I said to you, I'm going to be talking out of experiences. We haven't, though let me say it's work in progress. We haven't because if you talk about those 774,000 people you're talking about, pulling 100 from every local government, and you ask what they're producing, there might be things that can even run them into trouble eventually. Why? Because in the first place, you are giving it to them as a loan they're supposed to be paying back. That is why a lot of these programs fail, if we want to tell ourselves the truth. Okay? 2, they are producing what they can consume at a very primary level that has little or no value to it. My young brother talked about focusing on fattening cattle and cattle meat. You know what he's doing? He's only recovering 45% of his cost and losing 65% of where his profit is. Do you know where his profit is, Kingsley? It is in the bones, it is in the marrow, it is in the hooves, and it is in the horn. The moment that young man begins to process his hooves, there's what they call in Germany CLC, lightweight concrete, cellular lightweight concrete. It is made out of cow hooves. I went to that factory and I was amazed when they told me. And they said to me, listen, the cow hooves is like silicone, okay? It's like fiberglass. And it is the degradable fiber that can be strengthened. Look at the skins. Everybody is wearing, Madame is carrying a Givenchy, a Louis Vuitton, a leather that somebody just uses iron to put Louis Vuitton. And then you start paying $1,000 or $2,000. And all she wants to go and show people is that small metal that is carrying Louis Vuitton. Meanwhile, you've been set back your 2 months or 3 months salary. Yeah? For that bag. Okay? So if we don't have this understanding, and this is where aggregation now comes in, and that's why I'm a little excited about the Presidential Youth Empowerment Scheme that now seems to be a little bit more comprehensive. Now, but in being comprehensive, we must be able to also look at 1, policy, which is where government comes in, 2, program, which is now where your business, your feasibility, your programming comes in, and then action, which is now where your funding comes in. But funding comes in at 2 ends. End number 1 is that I've gone to almost every notable research institute in Nigeria. I can mention 1 or 2. NAPRI, under ABU Zaria. Please take a camera there. You will wait for Nigeria. Those guys have developed streams of fodder that can grow in the desert. An institute here. You go to ARUCN.
No commercialization.
I said, we are trying to now get into a relationship with them. You go to ARUCN, they have 2 volumes of research outputs. And each volume is about 5,000 pages of research outputs. And I'm talking about in every area of the agro and allied sector. Now, in all these things you're talking about, nobody has ever mentioned that any of these people are producing medicinal plants. Yet, your greatest pathway now to reducing sugar is by taking, this local medication. There's a seed they call a bere. Yorubas call it a bere seed. Okay? Extremely bitter. Grows in the wild. Take 1 spoon. Put inside your mouth and drink water if you can be able to drink it down. Do it 2 days, your sugar crashes. This is something practical. Now, we are not looking at ibere. We are looking at insulin. Look at soursop. Crashes your postrate. And this is something you can practicalize. We're not looking at soursop. We're looking at metafon. Do you understand what I'm saying? But now when you go to...
On surgery.
Yes, and when you go to metafon, you'll be seeing that the organic extract in metafon or whatever now comes from soursop. And we have NIPRID that can be able to do this. So it's all about, first and foremost, aggregating our research institutes to be able to understand that it is all about research. And then getting people to say to these young people, you know what, let us first and foremost give you patient capital. But that patient capital is going to now be driven by aggregation. My young friend again talks about cattle. The question you should have asked him is, how do you fatten this cattle? At what cost does it come? What do you use? Where do you get your feeds? What volume of cattle do you have? How do you get your transportation? Do you have an abattoir? Now, I'm missing what is the most important in his business? Blood. The most important component of feed is blood meal. With all the cattle we are slaughtering, there is no facility in Nigeria producing blood meal. We are importing it. That will now begin to tell you to what extent we are not understanding it.
Look, the more you speak again, I mean, the more we realize that perhaps we need to go back to not just the drawing table, but almost a summit of all of these issues. I asked the question so that we don't miss our target at the end of the program. Look, when you list all of these things that need to be done, and they are all very essential, who has what task and who has what production target? Who has what production volume? Now, but you understand what I mean. It is not sufficient to say, okay, you're going to engage, let me say, let's take Edo State, or let's even take Lagos from each local government. Lagos has 20 local governments. You take 100 from each local government. What is their target? What are they producing? Is it merely to go and scratch the earth, cultivate yam or cultivate cassava, and then you grate the cassava, you fry gari, and everybody drinks the gari, and that is the end? So do we have all of these crops as targets? No. Do we have all of it? Even if it is just to say, look, it's animal feeds that we want to focus on. What are the youth in Yobe being primed to do on account of what you are telling us this morning?
And even at that, when we look at what you're saying, you know, when he first made this statement, it made me laugh because I was just listening and getting carried away. And most of our viewers will be doing the same because the revelations are really startling. You mentioned earlier, really, that what we are missing is the reward system. People want to work in the NTA because of this reason, in the banks because of that. Why don't they want to go to the farm? That reward system is very important. And we're talking about youth involvement in agriculture. Yes. How do we now get them or make agriculture attractive so that they can come into it? The reward is the end thing. Yes. How do we get that?
It's very simple, sir. Create an NMPC for agriculture.
NMPC for agriculture?
No, create an NMPC. Create a board that aggregates. How did the white people, also get the reward system from agriculture? They got it through the commodity boards. Anybody whose father was a millionaire in the 50s and 60s was a produce trader. Depending on the chain you were either at the lower chain or the mid chain, and then depending on one volume, you could be able to move together. The people now gave you loans to be able to buy trucks that moved from one location to location until it got to the factory and got to the sea, using what they call valorization in economics. That is what it is. So if you have this aggregation, and do you know what they did? The first thing they did was to develop the research institutes in whatever area that they wanted. When they wanted tobacco from northern Nigeria, what did they do? They developed the Tobacco Research Institute in Zaria. And then started now making certain that tobacco was produced from that area. I'm sure you met tobacco in Zaria. Now, sir, you're from Edo. NIFO was like any research institute you could see in New York. In fact, if you got into NIFO in its heydays, you could take pictures and people thought you were abroad. Now, they developed NIFO to start doing the seedlings, okay, that they now started planting on the land. The same thing for rubber. The Rubber Institute.
NIFO started as OPROS, Oil Palm Research Station.
Do you understand? So research, this is why we in our own program were saying, let's be able to now go to those who are supposed to be in charge of this research, outputs and technologies. Ministry of Science and Technology. But now, the way to go is not to now have ministries even building synergies. It won't work. From my own little experience, you just need to get a national body, probably a presidential task force or something that now begins to bring everybody to identify one, like I said, our national needs. What do we need to consume vis-a-vis corn? Now, what hectares of land do we require to get it? Where can we plant it? Where are the research institutes? Where are the seeds? Where are the storage?
And going forward, we had to import maize the other day.
Yes. Borrow. We keep borrowing maize. I think we even borrowed
maize.
And now that you have these thieves that have gone to break into storages, okay, including even research storages, including even treated seeds. Now, what it means is that there might not be any seeds to be able to support farmers with. I mean, it's a reality that we also need to think through. And if we don't have it, and our economy is dwindling as it is, what are we going to be doing for food security?
Well, many thanks, Dr. Emeka Okengu. And the issues that you raised are many. Red tapeism here, you know, the fear of this and that, and the non-usage or implementation of research outcomes and the rest of that. These are very big issues that will take maybe a whole lot of what they're talking about. But nonetheless, we scratch on them and then see how we can make headway in trying to discuss youth involvement in agriculture. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you from the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll now take a break, and then we'll be back with more on this and discuss some of these issues before we round up the program. Stay with us.
The counsel of our fathers.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experienced it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
My name is Nando Jamda Muhammad.
Stevita.
Hussein Musa. Roduna Joel Finji. Said Musa. John. I'm a carpenter. I've been doing this for more than 8 years now.
And I said plantain. Nakai Kimami Shekara Uku. I've been selling my tomatoes for about 10 years now, and I do it for a better Nigeria.
And I do it for a better Nigeria.
And you can see how we are doing our small little work to make Nigeria great.
As you can see, I'm a technician and I'm doing it to help myself and to help my generation.
Business.
This message is from the National Orientation Agency. Dialogue, empathy, love, and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative.
All right, you're welcome back, and it was still Good Morning Nigeria. I hope you're finding this conversation very interesting, that the opportunities out there in terms of agriculture, the opportunities are humongous. They are manifold, and the more we peel off one layer, the more we see other layers. It is precisely understanding all of these issues and how we can use them as opportunities that is very critical, and that's why we have our two guests here with us, Dr. Emeka Okengu here with us in the Abuja studios, and Adewale Kalejaye at our Ibadan Network Center. But there are some tweets that have come in already from our viewers, so we'll quickly go through those tweets. Cecilia Okoroma says, for the agricultural sector to be attractive to our youth, we must think technology and not hoe and digger.
And Mutana Farouk says, do you know the untapped human resource that is being wasted in Nigeria? That's a big question. And those who care should know that the youthful exuberance and energy in Nigeria can turn Nigeria to one of the most industrialized countries in the world if it is well managed. But the neglect could be dangerous, which of course we are facing now.
That's right. Cecilia Okoroma, the present government has done well in encouraging youth in agriculture. Investors must rejig the agricultural sector. Environment must look attractive, and mechanization is key. Now, they want to see things that are seen in perhaps in an office environment with well-structured system.
Jabril Salisu Naidna says, any fund disbursed purposely for agric should not be diverted lavishly from now on in order to see the improvement. Government needs to identify the real field agriculture youth and be aiding them contrary to most receiving lazy youth. IT and modern intelligence, IT that is, and modern intelligence needs to be deployed more to these sectors so that the youth can appreciate that.
Alimi Ibrahim says, education has made our youth believe so much in white-collar job, which has led them into, again, believing in WWW, meaning wealth without work. Very few are interested in agriculture. Well, Alim Ibrahim, if you've been listening to our guest this morning, the agriculture that we have is indeed much wider than the one you use the hoe and machete for. It's
really.
much bigger than just planting one or two crops, and then harvesting them on your own and going to market them your own. It's a huge, huge business with the potential for transforming our economy.
Truly, Kinsley. And John B. Cross here says, while the youths are getting involved in agriculture and its attendant consequences, let's not forget that it's not for all youths. We need the youths also to drive away the sit-tight rulers who said they were born to rule.
This is Jubril Salisu 99 one more time. Says our youth should note that any injection of funds by government into the agri sector will not yield to their casual peer group discussions that the sector needs massive change. So far as their majority amongst them continue to hold the mentality that agriculture is a job for the aged or lower class of society.
Festus Akim Boyewa says, adequate investment in science and technology in agriculture by government should make the sector attractive to our youths. I don't think the government will expect our youths to be attracted to primitive agriculture. No, that really.
Akeju Olagbaju tweets, now this is still a challenge to attract our youth. However, when agriculture is modernized, using appropriate technology to do their agro businesses, as long as practitioners who are the youth are not limited to making decisions under the tree but in the boardroom, we will have them more in agro business. Precisely the same issues that our guests have been talking about. Now, it appears we can extrapolate, Dr. Okengu, that when we begin to get all of this right, we will see the gradual, if not automatic revolution of our agriculture, and ultimately the phasing out of current agricultural practices, which to a large extent remains back-breaking, so many persons of our population being engaged in it. And as one generation succeeds another, you will find your niche in the value chain, and that you don't have to be the sole person to cultivate 1 or 2 acres before you add value to what is playing now. But finance is key. And one of the things you have stressed this morning is to say, look, there appears to be an over-reliance on debt rather than patient capital. You hear that even in the Anchor Borrowers Program, which is yielding some results, no question about it. But what we are saying is that what the Anchor Borrowers Program is achieving now could be a lot more if we had patient capital distributed in a number of key areas. I'm fascinated by this aspect you talked about, just producing fodder for cattle or producing fodder for livestock or growing corn, in such quantity that our silos will all be stacked, to the brim. How do we move from the mentality of debt, that's to say a loan, whether it is rock bottom 1% or 2%, to patient capital, and ensure that you monitor it along the line, and over time, persons begin to benefit from it?
Thank you very much. What is important, sir, is that you must create that back end. Because, you see, in giving a loan, the assumption is that the man has done everything he requires to do. He's done his land mapping, he's done his soil testing, he's done his irrigation, he's done everything, and then he now takes loan. But that's not the case. Okay? We have the NALDA. We should have been part of that Anchor Borrowers Program to have mapped out those lands, now gotten Ministry of Water Resources to have now marked out the irrigation or water systems that you need and all that. And then you now have a tailor to fit. So what happens, like I said, is that like Nadado is dressed, he goes to his farm, looks at what is happening there, walks into the farm office as air-conditioned. His gate man, who probably owns the land, now has a percentage of that thing based on probably the shared prosperity that they are talking about. Now, but when you are fixated on debt, and you're fixated on debt, when you have not been able to now ascertain if the back end has been done, which is why most of these loans are starting to be corrected. If we do a proper study of them, the rate of returns, it's very mind-boggling. You know, a lot of people can't pay back that money, and which is why central bank is now insisting that whatever it is you do, you must get somebody to be able to guarantee the loan for you. If we did that on cash flow basis, and we were very certain that this guy was going to be returning per hectare yield, okay, ask yourself a question. The big anchors, the people who are supposed to now be the major anchors or the primary anchors, how many of them were able to run their silos? How many of those silos are operational? How many of them were able to get that feedstock from the people who are supposed to be feeding them? So there's also that disconnect between the aggregation at farm gates, okay, and then the storage, which will now actually now make whoever it is that is a primary or major, off-taker to begin to now plan your value process. But it is not rocket science, okay, and it is very easy to resolve. First thing is that no matter what it is we do, it's such a shame that in a country as big as ours, with all our whole financing mechanisms, you now get grants from international donor agencies. Even the ministries of agriculture will be going to IFAD to go and look at, grants to be able to support some of these scoping studies, not even the bankable feasibilities. And this is where it begins to get a little bit worrisome. Why can't we create this, even if it's a tax system? Like in education, you have education tax, where you now have, okay, for everything you pay, there is 1% agri-tax that is going to be aggregated and now be used now for 1, research, 2, land development, 3, for capacity building, okay, 4, proper implement. Because you can give somebody a water pump and say to him, okay, take this water pump, and he has 2 hectares of land, and he's buying fuel at 300 naira a liter, 100 naira a liter. He does not know that the cost of fuel is going to be affecting his total output. Okay, remember the days of cassava. Nigeria had gone to sign, a contract with the government of China then to supply $3 billion worth of cassava chips. What were their cassava chips going to? For their cow. For the cow foot and mouth disease. Yet we couldn't even do 10% of that contract, because when people were now encouraged to farm and they started producing the cassava, at drying, they found out that the volume when they harvested and the volume when they now processed, they couldn't sell. So the cost of production, now started shining, stripping the thing. So they couldn't sell. A lot of those cassavas got destroyed on the ground. And because we didn't have also a system to aggregate and evacuate and store and process, government couldn't do much to help. Now, the people who are going to take those loans were now forced to pay back. So in being fair and clean...
Next time you ask them to go into cassava production...
No, they take the loan and then go into trading, which is actually what is happening. So I think for us to be able to give more credibility to these programs, I think I will want to beg NTA to probably do... I don't know, you could call it a spot or something, and then go to these facilities and see if indeed, 1, the people have been engaged, 2, the primary off-takers are getting, the feedstock, and 3, how come, if not, what is happening and what can be done? It's not investigative to put anybody down. It is for us to be able to now identify these gaps and then build a country, because we must create, and I keep saying this publicly, a minimum of 20 million jobs. We must create it before 2023.
What you are saying, that's where the jobs are.
Yes.
Nadabo.
Yeah, sure.
Right, that's where the jobs are. There's no magic to it. It's just to get it right?
Yes.
Because we have the basics, as it were. We have the basics and the mechanics. We already have a head start. Research products are there, or research outcomes are there, getting them commercialized, and so on and so forth. But let's return to Adewale Kalejai. Adewale Kalejai, maybe you give us a bit of your background. I'm asking this question deliberately. What did you study? Because we see a number of persons, who graduate with degrees in different fields of agriculture, and sometimes we tell you that they are looking for work.
Okay, thank you once again. My background is in criminology, actually, from the National Open University. And I didn't want to practice with this because I saw the enormous opportunity that agri can actually bring. And it's with passion because I realize that we are missing out hugely on this sector. So I decide to stay on this sector, learn all that I need to learn, and grow in it because I know the potential is there. Listening to the words of the president of the African Development Bank, in person of Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, he said the next set of billionaires and millionaires in Africa is going to be coming from agric. This is not just a mere word of motivation. It is based on facts. Because the truth is, agriculture, for example, presently is contributing about 23% to our national GDP across Africa, while it is yet untapped. Now, let's come to think of it. When we begin to scratch into these things that we've been talking about, much more is going to be achieved. He talked about the fact that in 2050, for example, we are looking at a $1 trillion industry. Because the population is going to grow, there's going to be more demand for food, there's going to be more demand for clothing, there's going to be more demand for diverse things that is connected to agriculture. And the people who are positioning themselves now are going to be the ones to benefit from that industry. So I would say I saw this and I decided to put myself in the position to benefit from this sector.
With you there, Adewale. Good enough. Your background is criminology, but I don't want to harp on that. I want to believe that the background is that at least you have a degree, and then that's the basic thing that is important here. And as somebody who has gone through the university and who has seen the importance of research and who has come out now to put aside what he read and engage in something that he feels is more profitable than the other one, you should know the importance of research. I'm asking this question whether to get to the root of the fact that in your company, how far have you gone in trying to utilize research findings? Government may not be able to do everything because you know it as a private person, and sometimes if you really want to, break even, you go extra mile in trying to do that. How far have you gone in trying to see to it that some research findings that relate to your own company are being used, are being utilized in order to, move forward?
Okay, yeah, we cannot overemphasize the need for research. And personally, it's one of the things that I would say got me into agric on a large scale. Because I realized that the more we can have a better understanding of what we are doing, the better results we are going to get. As a company, we came into agric with the understanding that we can actually yield more profits if we get our economics right. And when you look at this sector that I'm in, I talked about the fact that we're farting. You realize that most of the finances that goes into input of the finance that you are putting into the business, 70% of it goes into feeding, for example. Now, I have to look at what are the things that I can do to cut down this cost so that I can generate more profits. The last time I was on the program, I talked about the fact that we've delved into hydroponics technology, for example, whereby we grow our fodders to feed some of our cows, and we've expanded that into other animals. We give pigs, ruminant animals, and we're also giving some of our poultries because we've kind of diversified into all these other areas. Now, in doing that, and of course we're still trying to make more research to still drastically cut costs so that we can generate more profits, we still keep looking into other areas. I still talk to people, I go for seminars and the likes along this line to be able to learn more from people in the industry. Of course, I'm in Ogun State. I go to the Federal University of Agriculture to talk to some of the lecturers there on what are the new things they are finding out, especially in this area of cutting the cost of feeding of our livestock, for example. I believe that if we can get that sector right alone, we will be able to actually maximize profits across board. If any company can come to say they are producing this feed and the feed conversion ratio is very high and the cost of getting it is also low, I bet you that company is in for it. So that's why I said there are a lot of angles with which we can come in. So as a company personally, we keep working into the areas because we just have to look at what is working and what is not working, and we progress from there. So without research, you can't achieve that.
Well, thank you very much there for your very encouraging and inspiring words. Back to Dr. Emeka Okengu. Dr. Emeka Okengu, part of the reason why I asked that question was about the tailpiece of it, namely, you probably have encountered graduates of any of the agricultural disciplines who will tell you they have no work, they are looking for work, X, Y, Z. In addition to tweaking our policy and ensuring that either the research agencies or those who are involved in agriculture don't work in silos, what more would you like to see in and from our various faculties of agriculture? Do we have this universal view of agriculture such as you have articulated this morning, so that when you are training your students, you can begin to let them see where the opportunities lie, and then once you are out, you know where to fit in?
You know, in our days, Kingsley, when we were younger and we were in school, there were two things that were unspoken, but they were there. They were what they call the JCPs and LMAs. JCP meaning Job Creation Partnerships and Labor Market Agreements. All of us, experienced it in one way or the other, where the big companies came and did headhunting, either in the schools or in youth service camps, and then if you were proficient, if you were a first-class student, you were very, very certain that you're going to get engaged. Now, that is at the level, at the output. Now, in the input, when you look at people who are also now doing research, because research is funding heavy, and you're not getting anybody who is supporting that funding program. In fact, a lot of masters and PhD students actually have to fund, their PhD research, especially in agriculture, and it can be extremely, extremely financially demanding. So that's also a lull. So what needs to happen, and if we create this national mass, let us say, for instance, that we have a national policy that is allocating 20 million hectares of land to production. And the word is not agriculture, production. And then we're now segregating it into streams: forage, animal husbandry, medicinal plants, ornamental plants, spices, this, that. Now, with that 20 million hectares, then you now have your output of saying for every hectare, we're going to be getting a minimum of 10 tons. So now it is down where you can now begin to fit in your human capital through the creation of these job creation partnerships and labor market agreements. Now, sometimes when you speak like this, people say to you, oh, you know your problem, you're not practical, you're too theoretical. And I said, you see, you can speak that way because you don't actually know that theory is the basis
for practice.
For practice. If you don't, develop a theoretical framework, you can't be able to get any, because that's where the thinking of what it is you want to do happens. Now, and that will now be where we are now talking about, like I said earlier, national volumes. This is where you can actually say you can have your shop rights or whatever. This is what South Africa, with 13% of its land arable, 80% of the fruits and vegetables you see in ShopRite come from South Africa.
That's true.
Okay? Because there's this aggregation. They have an understanding of how many tons of each that is going to be coming out by the end of every, farming cycle. Okay? We don't have that here. What we now have are people, now this is from Yobe, some other person is from Bauchi, some other person is from Borno. They are sharing some maybe 10, 20, 30, 40, 500 hectares of land. This one is planting ugu. This one is planting pepper. This one is planting this. This one is planting that.
Subsistence.
By the end of the day, everybody is carrying one bag and going to the market to sell. But if you had aggregated those people and say to them, you know what, for this circle, we're going to be planting corn. And then we're going to be creating this commercial cooperative for you. You can now bring in a Kingsley, who is an agronomist. You can bring in an Anado, who is an agroeconomist. You can bring in a Emeka, who is probably a machinist. You can bring in somebody not to pay them. They now do what you call the shared prosperity model, where because we know that we're going to be getting 10,000 hectares that is going to be costing this at the primary level. Okay, so you're going to be making profit at 3 levels. Primary level, secondary level, and then when you now begin to now package into basmati rice, perfumed rice, this and that and that. So that's the simple way.
And you can imagine if we got this right, what impact it would have on our foreign reserves.
Oh, yes.
And how much we spend on not just importing food, but also importing certain additives that we need, whether it's corn syrup, whether it's industrial starch, or otherwise. All of these items, they're all right here with us if we got it right. And so there will be a boost instead of monitoring and seeing that, oh, this year, at this time, our foreign reserves is 35.6. Oh, no, it's gone up to 43, and everybody will be applauding. And there's pressure on the Naira, and so on and so forth.
The multiplier effect of all this is going to go unimaginable. Everything is going to be touched.
And I like to point out, that's why we have also focused on it in terms of getting the philosophical underpinning. Yes. It is not sufficient to say you want to create so many jobs, you want to engage many persons. If the thinking, which is the theoretical foundation, is gotten right, then of course it will facilitate what the other goals are.
Dr. Emeka Okengu, thank you so much for being part of this program this morning. It's our pleasure being with us, and we keep coming and knocking at your door. You keep opening for us, I believe.
Thank you, sir.
Adeoleo Kale Jaye, it's our pleasure you've been with us. We thank you so much, and wish you all the best in your endeavors, and keep riding on. Keep getting the youth into the fold, right? Well, thank you, Dad. So much. It's a pleasure being part of this program. You out there, you've been part of us. It's because of you that we're here, and we want to plead that you be with us tomorrow as you come up with another topic. I am Yusuf Nadabo Usman.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola, asking you to stay safe and be well. See you tomorrow.